Welcome to Noir Alley, the dark corner of the TCM universe, where today we celebrate Easter with a tale of resurrection and redemption, noir style. I'm your guide through these dark passageways, Eddie Muller. If film noir has an official sport, it is undoubtedly boxing. The sweet science, as writer A.J. Liebling called it, has provided fodder for literally hundreds of Hollywood movies. In most of them, a plucky underdog battles through adversity to claim the crown and win the girl. Noir films, however, offered a tougher, bleaker, and dare I say, more realistic view of the fight game, which can be noble, cruel, and corrupt in equal measure. I grew up around boxing. My father was a renowned boxing writer for the San Francisco Examiner, whose career spanned 6 decades, from Jack Dempsey to Sugar Ray Leonard. Coincidentally, one of his ringside cohorts covering fights for the Oakland Tribune was Art Cohn, the screenwriter of today's movie. From 1949, it's The Setup, that rare movie like Gunga Din that's based on a poem. Joseph Moncure March, who had a brief knack for this kind of epic rhyming narrative, wrote it in 1928. The most exceptional thing about it, besides the avalanche of couplets, mean as a panther, crafty as a fox, he could hit like a mule and he knew how to box, is that the hero of the story is a black fighter who's denied a crack at the middleweight title because of the color of his skin. Even 20 years later, Hollywood wasn't about to make that film, although a trace of the original remains in the person of James Edwards, who made his movie debut here as the proud and determined fighter Luther Hawkins. Otherwise, little remains in Art Cohn's script from the original poem. What he created was as far from the glory of Madison Square Garden as a film could get, and it's filled with plenty of details Cohn collected from his time as a sports writer, like the blind guy who's an avid fan. He was a fixture at fight nights in San Francisco. Robert Ryan was the perfect choice for the role of Stoker Thompson, not only because of his quiet dignity, but because he could actually fight. He'd been a collegiate heavyweight champion 4 years running at Dartmouth. For the role of his loyal wife, director Robert Wise wanted Joan Blondell, specifically as she had appeared in Nightmare Alley. But RKO studio boss Howard Hughes nixed the idea, instead suggesting one young sexpot after another. Only days before shooting began, Wise and Hughes reached an accommodation. Audrey Totter got the part. As Audrey explained it to me, Bob thought I could act, and Howard thought I was busty enough. The delay in selecting a leading actress actually worked in Wise's favor, because for the first time ever, he was able to draw up storyboards for every shot and camera move. The climactic fight scene was choreographed by former boxer Johnny Indrisano and captured with 3 cameras over the course of a week's shooting. Now, Wise, who'd started as an editor, cut the entire sequence himself, the last time he'd actually handle film in an editing room. Robert Ryan would make more than 70 feature films in his career, but he always maintained that The Setup was his personal favorite, and it's easy to see why. For a guy who created some of the worst villains in movie history, here he gets to play a simple, noble, honorable man. And a last note for pop culture fans, keep an eye peeled for the ringside timekeeper. That's Arthur Felig, also known as Ouija, the legendary New York tabloid photographer whose influence on noir style can't be overstated. Ouija had recently ventured out to Hollywood, and Wise acknowledged his artistry by offering him this brief cameo. The fans in this boxing arena could have stepped right out of Ouija photos. From 1949, presented in real time, 72 chronological minutes, here's what many people consider the greatest boxing movie ever made, The Setup.